So what we did in the last video was start our leg sub-assembly by creating these two linkages and the central starting portion of the leg of our sub-assembly. So before we go any further, what I'm going to do is apply the right materials to these parts again. So I'm going to go to the modify menu, and in terms of physical material, click on that. And once again, I'm going to make all of these parts ABS. So those two linkages are white ABS and also the leg. Now I actually want to apply a different appearance to this, so I still want it to be ABS, but I actually want it to be a different color ABS. And the way you can do that is under the modify menu, below physical material, there's a thing called appearance. Now this isn't going to affect the mass or anything like that, but it does affect the way the part appears. And this brings you into the appearance library, so there's lots of different appearances that you can choose. I'm currently in the paint section, and I'm going to pick a metal flake paint, and I'm going to pick the red one. But if you open up this menu and see some of these appearances that you want to use but it won't drag onto the part and apply it, that may well be because you need to download them. So if you see this small arrow at the side here, that means that material needs to be downloaded to your particular account. And the way you do that is click on that small icon, and after about 2 seconds it loads, and that's now available to use. I'm actually going to make the part that we've got on the screen a red metallic flake appearance. So I'm just going to drag that onto the part and drop it, and that's now created a metallic looking appearance, or it will do when we get to the render stage. So that's just giving me the option there to actually make these different colors and make them a little bit more identifiable in this, so rather than everything being the same color. So I'm now going to go to the modify menu, and the first thing I'm going to do is clean up this block and make this a whole lot better in terms of appearance by adding fillets into all of these corners that you can see here. So I just need to click on that last one, and I'm going to apply a 5mm radius to that. So that's already made that look a lot better. And now I'm just going to go to the rule fillet tool and click on this face here and apply a 5mm fillet to that as well. And if you need to add the back face, hold the control key on the keyboard and click on that face, and it adds the rule fillet to that face as well. So once I click on OK for that, that has now put some quite nice radii all around that part. That already looks a lot better than it did just a couple of seconds ago. What I want to do now is put a couple of holes through this that are going to allow me then to connect these linkages into. So I'm going to make the leg the active component, just like we did in the past. So clicking on the radio button next to the leg to make that the active component. Create a sketch, and I'm going to create a sketch on this face here. So I've got this rectangle, and I want to put the hole in the center of this rectangle. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to pick on the line tool and put 2 diagonal lines across that rectangle, which will actually then find me the center of that rectangle. Now I want those to be construction lines, so I don't want them to be an active part of the sketch. So I'm just going to click on that line there and turn that into a construction line, and that line there and turn that into a construction line. And now I'm going to go to the circle tool and pick a 5mm diameter circle. And I'm now going to do the same on the other face. So I'm just going to drop down again. Now what you might be able to do rather than create construction is you might actually be able to you can pick up on midpoints, and you can probably find the center of that face. So I'm just going to put the 5mm diameter circle on that face as well. And that's given me 2 sketches that I need. So I'm now going to stop sketch. And now I'm going to go to the create extrude tool again and pick those 2 profiles that I've just created. So pick on that top one and pick on that second one there and start to extrude them, but I'm going to push them into the block to create a hole. Now what I can do at this stage is I can click on a face on the other side of the face to make them go all the way through, or I could do it as an all command. So the extent is all. So it's cutting through every body that that profile can actually see in front of it. and what you'll see is that's actually cut through one of the linkages, which isn't really what we want. And that's what this option is here at the bottom where it says objects to cut. When you open that up, it's actually giving you the option of which bodies you want this to cut all the way through. And you can see currently the linkage is also selected, but if I untick that and then click OK, it's actually just put those two holes through the actual center part of the leg and not through the linkage. Right, so now what we want to do is we want to start assembling our parts. So I'm going to click back to the top level assembly, make everything active. And the first thing we want to do is create two copies of each of the, or a further copy of each of these linkages. So I'm going to do a copy and a paste, just the way we did in the earlier video when we did the core component. So that's the first one done, and then I'm going to go back and copy and then paste to get that second linkage. So I've now got a set of 4 linkages, which is actually what I want. We can now start to use the assemble menu. Now the assemble menu is only usable if you create everything as components. It doesn't work with bodies, so you have to create everything as components to be able to use this assembly, which is why we've taken that particular approach with this particular project. So what we're going to do is we're going to assemble some joints now between these linkages and this leg. Now the first thing you'll notice is if you click and hold on any of these components, they will actually move around on the screen. So they're currently not fixed in space, they can move anywhere. We do need to fix one of them though to stop one of them moving to be able to see the effect of the joints that we're going to put in place. And what we're going to do is we're going to fix this center leg, and the way you do that is in the browser. If you right click on where it says leg, you'll see there's an option which is the second option down called ground, and when you click on ground you should see a small pin appear in the icon next to the component icon, and that's indicating to you that the leg is now a grounded component. What does that mean? Well, that leg now can't move. When I click and try and drag it, it won't move. These still move. So all of the linkage still move, but this leg won't move anymore. So I'm now ready to start my assembly, and what we're going to use is the joint tool. Now the joint tool is a way of bringing these parts together and making them move the way they would do in real life. And the best way to imagine this is what you're trying to do is just trying to do it the same way you'd assemble a physical body. So what you're looking for is mating features on each of the parts that you want to bring together, and then apply a type of joint to that feature. So once I'm in the joint menu, what I can do is start hovering over the component, and what you'll see is this circle that's half filled jumping around and picking up on various features. So it's picking up on features that I'm able to select to create a relationship between two parts. And if I click on the outer rim of that particular hole, it's picking up on the center of that hole on that face as a feature to use to actually create the joint. And that's what I want to do in this particular case. So I'm now going to rotate the view around, because what I want to do is I want that particular face there to join onto the mating point of this. So if I click on the same feature in the leg block, and you can see again there it's picking up the center point, it's going to bring those two center points together. So when I click on that now, you'll see the linkage has moved into connection with the leg, and that shuddering motion is being driven by the type of joint that we've currently got between those. Now at the moment that's a rigid joint, so that's as if we'd welded the two parts together. So these are now fixed in relationship to each other using a rigid joint. What we actually want is these two parts to rotate, and under where it says rigid, I can select a different type of joint, and the one that we actually want in this case is revolute. And as soon as you click on revolute, it actually gives you this animation that shows you what that joint is, and that's exactly the type of joint that we want. So that's good to go. So we can now click OK, and we've now got a revolute joint there. If I now left click on this part and move it, you'll see it actually moves with that revolute joint. So it's now moving the way it would do in real life. So all I need to do now is go and do that another 3 times, and in the next video we'll come back and we'll finish off the modelling for this particular leg, and we'll end up with what we saw at the beginning of the first video, which is this kind of setup.